Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome back. So today I got another gimbal review. We're going to be looking at the ViewFlex GoPro Gimbal. It's compatible with the GoPro HERO5, GoPro HERO4. Now with this gimbal, you're going to get a USB cable, you're going to get 2 batteries and a charger that you can charge up the 2 batteries with. So let's start off with a little tour of the ViewFlex gimbal. So it does have a joystick on it so that you can pan the GoPro left and right, up and down. Another thing that it has is an LED light, which I haven't seen that on a gimbal yet, so I'm really excited to test that out. Now you can actually charge this gimbal up by using this port here, by connecting up the USB cable. It does have, you know, the power button obviously, and then a mode select option there. And this is where you would turn on the light and you can actually make it brighter or darker. Now to get the battery installed into the gimbal, we're just gonna untwist the knob here on the bottom and then put the batteries right in. Bam, simple as that. All right, let's get the GoPro installed. All right, so the ViewFlex gimbal has a few screws on here so that you can unloosen them so that you can get the GoPro attached. Now, one recommendation if you're using the GoPro HERO5 is to unloosen this screw a bit more because the GoPro HERO5 is a little bit beefier than the GoPro HERO4, so that'll allow you to get the GoPro HERO5 in there much easier if that's loose. So I'm going to unloosen that a little bit more, and now it slides in pretty good, and then just tighten it up. Now, one small problem with this is that the GoPro HERO5 has its power button on this side here, so you don't have access to it. So one thing you could do is enable quick capture on your GoPro HERO5. So then all you would have to do is just press the record button, and then, you know, the GoPro HERO5 will turn on and it'll begin recording. I don't have an SD card in right now. The same thing goes for the GoPro HERO4 Black. You got your power button on the front, as well as the mode selection and the settings button on the side here. So when you have it in the gimbal, you kind of, you know, lose access to that. So either turn it on before you put it in the gimbal or just enable quick capture. So this is the power button here. I'm just gonna hold that down for a few seconds and then I'm gonna push it once, and now the GoPro and the gimbal are functioning. Now I noticed that once you first turn it on, the gimbal will be on a slight tilt a little bit, but once you have it on for like a second or two, it'll actually adjust itself and it'll go straight again. Now, one cool thing that ViewFlex did with this option here, if you actually hit that 6 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that will actually calibrate the gimbal so that it'll go straight. So if it ever ends up on a slight angle or anything like that, you can optimize the horizon or fix the gimbal so that it's perfectly straight. So now let me just run through the different modes that you have on this gimbal. So when you first turn it on, it'll be in pan mode. So basically keeping the horizon straight. Now if you hit this button here twice, it'll go into follow mode. So basically wherever you aim the gimbal, the GoPro will point in that direction and you'll have nice and smooth panning shots. Now if we go back to this and hit it twice again, it'll actually lock the GoPro in place, and then if we hit it twice again, it'll go right back into pan mode. So let me quickly touch on the joystick. So right now I have the gimbal in pan mode, and when you're in pan mode, you can only go down and up. You can't go left and right. When I go to follow mode as well, you can only go up and down. You can't go left and right. But once you go into lock mode, you're able to go down, up, left, and right. Now one thing is that it's actually inverted. So if I push up on the gimbal, it'll actually go down. If I push down on the gimbal, it'll go up. Same thing as if I go left on the gimbal, it'll go right. Right on the gimbal, it'll go left. Now I just want to show you how fast the joystick is when you're using it. So let's go down and you kind of see that speed. It's nice, and I think it's a good speed, not too fast and not too slow. Going up here, pretty good speed. Now, when we go to the left to right position though, I feel like a little bit too slow, and I'm not too sure. Like, I'm not sure what I would want to capture, but I just feel like it's a little bit too slow. But that might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing, it might just be, depending on what you're trying to capture, it might work for certain situations. Now, another cool thing that you could do with this gimbal is maybe capture some time lapses. So on that same button, I'm gonna hit that same button 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll notice that the GoPro starts spinning in a really slow movement. So it'll actually do a full 360 degrees. If I'm gonna guess, I would say maybe it'd take a whole minute to go all the way around. And I don't know, you could probably do some really cool stuff with that. And if you wanna stop it, you can just hit that button twice and it'll go right back into pan mode. Now let me just show you the LED. So remember that button I was showing you right here? It has a little flashlight on it. So I'm gonna turn that on and the light turns on. And like I was showing you earlier, you do have an option here to go up to make it brighter and down to make it darker. So let me show you how dark it goes. It actually just turns all the way off. Then if I go all the way up, you'll see how bright it goes. Now I'm gonna do some tests with this at night so we can kind of see how good that light does in low light situations while using the gimbal. I think it's time for some test shots. So let's go get some test shots with the HERO5 and the HERO4. Starting out with some basic walking. Alright, so we're testing out the GoPro HERO5 now, and I have the gimbal set to pan mode and I'm shooting in 4K. So doing some basic walking here, and kind of notice that the horizon is on a slight tilt, but it seems like it sort of fixed itself right here. And right now I'm kind of picking up the pace a little bit, and horizon kind of looked like it went a little bit crooked. We're noticing some shakiness, some micro movements. So, you know, if you are going to be getting some walking shots or even jogging shots or running shots, you can expect something similar to what I'm capturing here. Alright, so we're doing the same exact test, got the GoPro HERO5, but now I have the gimbal set to follow mode. So what that means is basically wherever I point that gimbal, the GoPro will follow in a smooth motion. So I'm just kind of walking slow here and then going to be picking up the pace. So far it looks pretty good. Going to pan back up a little bit. The horizon looks pretty straight, but we're also again noticing those micro movements where it's a little bit shaky, and I mean that looked pretty smooth. Now we're going to go back and do the same exact test. Just point it down, pick it back up. Pan it to the left, pan it to the right. Look pretty smooth. Gonna jog a little bit here, pick up the pace. See what that looks like. And again, we're sort of seeing a little bit of movement there. Alright, again, we're doing the same test, but now I have video stabilization enabled in the GoPro HERO5. And this is in pan mode with the ViewFlex Gimbal. Now we notice that the shot looks a lot more stable. There's not much of those micro movements that we're seeing when we do not have video stabilization enabled. So if you want added stabilization when using this gimbal or any gimbal, or even just going handheld, you might want to enable video stabilization on in your GoPro for added smoothness. Okay, we are testing out the GoPro HERO4 Black in pan mode, doing some slow walking here. Okay, we're switching over to the GoPro HERO4 Black, and again, we're testing out pan mode, and be doing the same exact test. Going to do a little walking and then speed it up a little bit. So just kind of bringing the gimbal up and then down towards the foot area. And again, we're kind of seeing that shakiness, those micro movements, which I think it should be a lot more smoother than that. But one thing you got to keep in mind is when you're walking or running or jogging, you kind of want to be really light on your feet to capture really smooth shots with a gimbal. But I'm kind of just over exaggerating it and just running how I normally would or jog how I normally would without being that careful with the gimbal. So if you are doing the same exact thing I am, these are the sort of shots that you can expect with this gimbal. Okay, again, we're using the GoPro HERO4, but now I have the gimbal set to follow mode, so we can kind of see what kind of shots you can expect if you're using the GoPro HERO4 with the ViewFlex in follow mode. So we can see that, you know, when I'm panning up, panning down, panning right to the left, looks pretty smooth while I'm walking. Looks pretty good. Let's pan it back up here, kind of get an idea if we kind of get that shakiness. So again, we're sort of seeing it. If you pay attention to the background and the sides, you notice that there's a little bit of jumpiness there, and that's because of my footsteps. And you know, these sort of gimbals, a 3-axis gimbal doesn't have it doesn't cover the Z-axis. So when you're going up and down with your hand when you're walking, you know, the gimbal can't compensate for that. So that's sort of why we're seeing that jumpiness in this gimbal. Again, panning back to the left, gonna pick up the pace a little bit, and if you pay attention to the sides and towards the back, you kind of notice a little bit of that micro movement. So the next thing I want to try is attaching the ViewFlex gimbal to an extended pole to see what the results will be like. And kind of surprised, it actually looks a lot better. I'm just walking here, not really that fast, but a little bit later I pick up the pace, but we can see a really big difference when using the extended pole versus just using the gimbal itself in your hand. Now I just used a regular light stand. I didn't have any, specific compatible extended pole for the ViewFlex, so you can literally use any sort of pole, a monopod or anything like that, and it'll just twist on like a regular tripod. And just turning it around here, I'm definitely seeing a big difference between these running shots versus the running shots without the extended pole in use. Okay, so here comes the twist. I took the gimbal out to the park to capture some basketball, and surprisingly the gimbal is doing really good. And comparing it to the shots that we were looking at earlier, I could almost say that these were two different gimbals that I was using. Don't get me wrong, we still see a little bit of jumpiness, but it's doing so well. So I'm beginning to think that maybe doing these simple walking shots isn't the best way to test a gimbal. So yeah, so I don't know. I think the gimbal's actually pretty good at these shots.
All right, forget it. Forget it. GoPro, stop recording.
Okay, next thing I want to test is the audio quality. We're going to see if the GoPros are going to pick up any motor noises or any sort of noises while shooting with the gimbal. So let's check it out. What I want to do now is test the audio quality with the GoPro HERO5. I have the GoPro set to full auto with the audio. I'm just going to be moving the gimbal around and trying to see if the GoPro is going to pick up any motor noises from the gimbal. I'm going to use the joystick now, so I'm going to pan to the right, to the left, go down, up. Okay, doing the same exact test now, but I have the GoPro set to win-only mode, which is usually the best mode that you get if you are using gimbals. So let's do the same test, pan to the left, to the right, let's go up, down. Alright, let's use the joystick, go to the right, to the left, go down, and up. Alright, now I have the GoPro set to stereo only mode, doing the same test here, pan to the left, pan to the right, let's go up, down. Alright, let's check out the joystick. Let's go to the right, to the left, down, and up. Okay, using the GoPro Hero 4 Black, going to be testing the audio. Pan it to the left, to the right, up, down, down. Let's go to the joystick. Going to go to the right, back to the left. Let's go down and up. Okay, so I want to test out this LED light on this gimbal. I'm going to walk through my apartment, turn off all the lights, and see what the different brightness levels are going to do with this LED light. Now, just keep in mind with the GoPro, I'm going to leave everything at auto, so there's no Pro Tune enabled. ISO is just whatever it is at auto, so let's turn the light off, see what it looks like, and get the light on the gimbal on. So brightness level is all the way up right now. All the way up. I'm going to dim it down one notch. Do another one, another. And that's completely off. All right, let's turn it up all the way. Yeah, that's bright. Nice and messy in here. That's how I like it. And now, just to give you an idea, if you were to vlog with this, I'm not too sure what the ideal, light setting should be. Let me dim it down a little bit. Maybe something like that would be good. I'm not too sure. I guess that's like about halfway. And then if I go down a little bit more, that's sort of what you can expect. But having it all the way might be a little bit too crazy, but we'll see what it looks like. All right, guys, so we're coming to a conclusion here, and I want to cover some of the pros and cons of the ViewFlex gimbal. So first of all, I like the design of the gimbal. It's lightweight, it has a joystick, and it has that LED light, so you can capture some night shots with your GoPro and your gimbal. One thing I think is really cool is you could attach this to a tripod, so you can capture that cool 360 video or even a time lapse. One thing that's a little bit weird is the joystick. When you're going from left to right or right to left, I feel like it's a little bit too slow, and we should have the option to speed that up if we wanted to. The other thing that's weird is the joystick's inverted. So imagine I want to capture something to the left. Immediately I'm going to think push the joystick to the left, but then it starts going to the right. So I feel like maybe you get used to it eventually, or maybe if you're, a flight pilot or something, it just makes sense to you. And now when we go over to the audio for the GoPro HERO5, obviously horrible. It's pretty much unusable, but if you really need to, stick to win-only mode on the GoPro HERO5. GoPro HERO4 has no trouble, sounds really good. So now let's talk about stabilization. So this is where it gets really tricky because my parking lot shots, most of those shots looked really shaky, but then when I took it to the park and captured some basketball, the shots looked great. There was maybe one little minor section where it was a little bit jumpy, but we're capturing some action and the shots look great. So I kind of, going back to the parking lot shot, I feel like they should have been a lot more stable than they were. And I remember what I was saying was when you're walking, you're kind of bouncing up and down, so you want to be a little bit careful when capturing with a gimbal, because gimbals like this, a 3-axis gimbal, doesn't cover the Z-axis, which is up and down. But still, besides that, I feel like it still should have done a little bit better. But again, going to the basketball shots, those look great, and that's what you would want to capture, some action shots like that. So you kind of keep that in mind and figure out, what's going to work and what's not going to work. So the gimbal goes for $280 on Amazon, and I think it's a comparable price point compared to other gimbals out in the market around this sort of design. But yeah, I think I covered everything. Hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, drop a like. If you have any other comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section. But that's it, guys. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll check you out in my next video.